Thing.
Do we have any announcements?
Announcements.
Sunday school starts Sunday.
Regular Sunday school, faith formation. We got to get into saying
Yep.
faith formation. Regular faith formation classes start on Sunday for both adults and children. Children will be here in the Ed Wing, most likely. Look for Miss April or Miss Betsy. They're going to direct you to which classroom. I'm going to work on that this afternoon.
I thought you were going to do it in the social hall.
Well, I think we have enough kids to be able to be socially distanced in one of the classrooms. If we have a larger group of kids, it will be downstairs. But I think we have, a good size for upstairs in one of the classrooms. So that's where all the supplies are. So that would be easier for everybody. But
Hi, Sheila.
and then adults, along with our middle and high school, invited youth to adult Sundays. Adult faith formation. Faith continuation. I mean, that's not really is it formation at that adult age?
Yeah.
Still formation?
Yeah,
Okay.
because we're consistently and constantly trying to build our faith.
Forming.
Yeah.
All right. So that's going to be in the parish hall
Parish hall.
after service.
Yep.
Probably like 10:45, the same as the children.
Yeah.
Children 10:45.
Depends on how quick it takes me to get from here to there. It's such a journey.
Well, you got a lot of stops on the way usually, I think.
Traffic.
There is
Traffic.
traffic.
Yeah. So and the discussion will continue, or
Yeah, so what we're going to do for adult faith formation is have this discussion on Sunday. We'll see how that goes. If we need to adjust to a different format, then we will. But we'll see how this goes for the time being.
I can't. I'm just trying
Can
to.
you hear us okay, Sheila?
Yeah, I can't get this to come up as we're live. I presume it's working.
I think it's working.
We don't have the little live
Who
thing.
knows? Did you push all the buttons?
I did. I pushed all the buttons. I moved some levers.
Oh, there.
Turn some
are-
wheels.
Yeah.
Oh, it does say we have
See if you
5
can hear
people
us.
here.
Nice.
We've got some no's. Can't hear us. I don't know.
Okay, because Sheila just said she could.
Okay,
Everybody go to Sheila's.
everybody.
Sheila, you're about to have company.
Your flowers are still on the altar, Sheila, from Sunday. Thank you for providing those. The roses are still quite lovely. I'll add some water to those. so
We
they'll-
needed a little Thursday background.
We need a little Thursday background, yeah. They're lovely. Like fall colors. Happy fall, y'all. Y'all. It's officially fall. I don't have any other announcements. Do I have any other announcements? I don't think.
Hey, Diane.
Diane's here.
Yeah, come pick your German dinner up on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
If you prepaid,
If you prepay.
Prepaid,
there will be no day of
pre-ordered.
sales.
We had a couple of people trying to sneak in this week.
But that's all situated.
Russ said no.
And you pick up at the fire hall, not at the church.
Yep.
79 West Frederick Street, between 3:30 and 6:30.
Barely hear me.
That's a
Oh.
first, if they can barely hear you.
There it is.
Yeah, right?
All right, try that on for size.
Testing.
You would have to speak.
You hear me better?
I hear myself more than I hear you.
Well, I don't have myself turned up way loud in here,
Oh.
but I'm turning up the Mevo sound.
Oh, right. The online sound. We're still learning this system.
Technology is.
It's our technology formation class that's ongoing.
Yes. Anybody wants to?
No.
Barely hear. Yeah.
Is your
Are
battery
your batteries
dead?
good?
No, they're not.
Nope. That's why.
I'm so proud of myself.
He had everything all set up and ready to go,
Kids.
and no batteries. Well, anywho. So what shall we talk about while we're waiting for the batteries? The benches are in. They look really nice. I have no idea what he's doing back there. Throwing
making a lot of
batteries,
noise, though.
perhaps. Time for German dinner is different in 2 places. Yes, it is, Betsy, and it's 3:30 to 6:30. Hopefully,
There was an issue with the
ticket sales.
the ticket sale when you checked out. It
The
said
website.
3 to 7 instead of
Yeah.
3:30 to 6:30, and it was one of those things that was unrepairable apparently. So it's supposed to be 3:30 to 6:30. So if you would stay in that window, that'd be great for everyone.
Yeah, and I think you'll probably have some ready at 3 just in case.
We will be.
People do that 3 to 7 shot, but spread the word. 3:30 to 6:30. Woo, at the fire hall.
Yep, the cabbage is marinating as we speak.
All of the cabbage. I know
All the
we had
red
some
cabbage.
cabbage issues earlier in the week.
We did supply chain issues with
Supply
cabbage.
chain issues. I guess the Praise Garden will have to work on growing red cabbage next year.
As long as it pre-shreds it, that would be perfect.
No, I don't think so.
The raised beds at the parish hall look great, by the way.
Oh yes. Well, this evening there will be mums being put in. If you've driven past the parish hall and you're like, "What happened there?" The plants that were there were coming out over the railing. If you tried to use the ramp, you'll know you've been attacked by those. And our kindergarten, FEC's kindergarten class is in the parish hall this year because 2 of their students are in wheelchairs. And so on that kindergarten face level, you get smacked by a whole bunch of flowers. So we're out of batteries. We didn't want to hear from him today anyway, right?
No, so Belinda and Russ will talk until Joanne gets here with a new battery for me.
Oh, well. Are we going to dive in or we're just still bantering?
12:05. Are we still bantering?
I don't know. We were talking about plants in front of the parish hall. Anyway, just to finish that up, Betsy has procured some mums and they will be in so it won't look so bare, but they will not also attack children.
Mum's the word.
Mums, the word. And hopefully those will come back every year. And I learned some wonderful mum care from the Brunings this year. So
And passed it on to me.
and passed it on to him. He's never trimmed his mums.
No, and they look terrible this year. They fell apart. And now I know why.
So just so you know, you're supposed to cut them down like halfway on 4th of July. That's what you're supposed to do. I didn't know.
A lot of gardeners,
A lot of gardeners think it. Yeah, that's for sure.
horticulturalists.
Yeah, people who know stuff. We have 8 people on here this morning. So afternoon, I mean,
Because they don't.
it's for the banter. They don't have to listen to Phil. We knew he knew his batteries have been sabotaged. Anywho, so we're want me to just read this front page? I hope you guys have looked this up. It was really well put together.
I mean, I would say at least A and the first paragraph of B.
Okay, I'll read that. So the social statement on abortion was put together in 1991, but has been reviewed numerous times by the General Assembly. Things have been amended, clarified, etc. But it starts out, the basis of our unity. We, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, are united with all human beings and the whole creation because God has created us and all that exists. We are united in Christ with all Christians in the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. As Lutherans, we are united in our confession that we are justified by grace through faith in Jesus Christ. We believe that the Bible is the authoritative source and norm for Christian faith and life. And then section B starts with, because we are united in Christ through faith, we have both the freedom and the obligation to engage in serious deliberation on moral matters. So I starred that part. I don't know if you guys,
I did too. I highlighted it, but they can't hear me, so.
we're on the front page. And yes, we know we can't hear the pastor. He doesn't have any batteries in his mic, but that is on the way.
Joanne's on her way to the store.
So no, we don't. She didn't have to go all the way to the store. I live closer. Okay, all right.
It won't be that long. Basically, this first part is we should listen to both sides. We should have a discussion, especially on divisive issues like this. You know, without
And then
our
it gets into, yes, this
Yeah.
is a divisive issue. So page.
I hear
I
batteries.
hear a door, yeah. I liked that it said, you know, differences hold peril and promise. Is she good at throwing things? Go ahead.
Throw it.
Toss it on in
Sorry.
there.
You're throwing it with love,
Ah!
not anger.
Yikes.
So close.
Just come. Welcome, Joanne.
Our technical.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So now you'll be able to listen to him.
Well, the one part that I did like in this, the way they said it was,
Hey, look, we got full
differences
battery.
hold the promise or peril. So
Yes.
our differences are deep and potentially divisive. However, they're also a gift that can lead us into constructive conversation about our faith and its implications for our life in the world. So divisive issues can be good and bad depending on how it goes.
Yeah, I think if you're open to hearing the other side, you might get a different perspective than what your experiences allow you to have. I think.
Yeah, and I highlighted the next paragraph for me that was, I think, stood out, and it's really, I think, at the crux of the issue.
Before we carry on, can you guys hear him now?
Can you hear me? Do. Yeah, I'm in the red, so I should
Okay.
be able to turn it down a little bit. Okay, so the paragraph I did is in talking about our differences was the language used in discussing abortion should ignore neither the value of unborn life nor the value of the woman and her other relationships. It should neither obscure the moral seriousness of the decision faced by the woman nor hide the moral value of the newly conceived life. So I think, you know, that's where we look at this from our perspective, is that we, in all cases, have to look at both sides of the coin, you know?
Yeah, and not use absolute words like the rights, as if there aren't mitigating circumstances that we can't foresee. Everybody's circumstances are unique, so saying there's an absolute right or you're always pro-choice or pro-life, those things aren't constructive when we're having
A discussion.
a discussion.
Right.
And I just want everybody to know that the things we're putting out here are not our opinions. These are things that are in this, if you're following along or you read this. Just so when we're talking about it, we know that that's not what we're doing here.
We're trying not to.
Right.
I mean, we're still going to have our opinions, obviously, and those will slant what part of this speaks to us or not, I think. But we're trying to be in the middle because that's where we're called to be
Right.
and respect the lives of all parties.
All parties.
Right, and we're trying to put out what the ELCA has put
Yes.
out as their social statement, not necessarily our take on the subject.
Right.
Right. We're just trying to be the conduit by which we provide you with the information, and if the information speaks to you on one side or the other, that's how the information speaks to you. But we're going to try to stick down the middle to just give you the information. Yep.
So we're on,
Well, that was page 2 that we were just discussing, talking about our differences. I don't know if we want to talk about the convictions of our faith. To me, it was very, in light of this subject, it
brought it back to the,
Well, and
Everything.
and
God creates.
reading this too, you can tell how dated the document is because it refers to men and women as opposed to what other type of family units there might be experiencing whatever in this
right.
debate. So I
It's,
think
it's definitely not gender neutral or open.
yeah, because that's another discussion.
That's further down. That's a couple weeks from now.
But I think that's important for us to realize too. I think, as we speak to this, we speak, for that everybody should have a voice in this. I don't want to say decision making, but in how they work through it. It shouldn't.
In the deliberation.
There you go. Right. Thank you.
I got that word from this document, so I don't praise me too much. But yeah, to me, I just put notes, on the side. God creates. We should respect what God creates, and then there was sin, and we're called back, and there's forgiveness. Just basically the message of the gospel, but in context of how we should handle.
And it
Yes.
also goes into, we were also given the gift of discernment.
Correct.
So-
And I think that's exactly a pertinent point where, we believe that human life and all its development is God-given, but also we have been given that ability to figure out if something's not going to be, I don't want to say right, but
Basically to make decisions.
right, yes.
Betsy asked, am I understanding that the church is not advocating one way or the other? Actually, by the end of the statement, there are some,
Page 7, page 9.
yeah,
will
page
spell it
7
out,
to page
where
9
they stand.
are kind of like what their parameters are. And we'll get to that, but they are trying to, yes, not be on one side or the other. They're not pro-choice. They're not pro-life. They're asking us not to use those terms and to regard each circumstance individually with love
Right.
and no judgment. That's what I'm getting.
Right, and I was, a little surprised when I read this that they do advocate for government regulation,
Yeah.
which to me,
Again, that's going to get into my personal opinion on
yeah,
the subject.
right.
Well, we'll get into that.
We'll get down.
That's
We'll
like
get to that.
page 10.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we're still on page 3.
We're still on page 3.
Right.
But I think, one of the things it says, inspired by Jesus' own ministry, our love for neighbor embraces especially those who are most vulnerable, including both the pregnant woman and the life in the womb. So in order for us to be, in love of our neighbor, we are required to look at both sides. We're required to, take all the information in to make, not that it's our
Yeah, I was
decision.
about to say it's not.
Right,
Yeah.
but,
This does not
it's,
advocate for someone else making that.
correct, and I
Uninterested
wasn't trying to,
parties.
and I wasn't trying to say that.
Right.
But I think it's important for us to be able to be alongside those who need to make those decisions. And,
Right.
not necessarily be the influence there, but just be the support.
And that's kind of lead in for section number 3 on page 3, the church as a community supportive of life.
Right.
Um,
And, I think the first statement right there is we mourn the loss of life. Either way,
Right.
Well, and page 4, the top of it kind of states a lot of what this message says too, that abortion ought to be an option of last resort. So the church should seek to reduce the need to turn to abortion as the answer to unintended pregnancies. So there's a lot about different ways to prevent pregnancies to start with, and also to support, if somebody's in a state where they aren't going to be able to support a child, that there's a mechanism for them to either be able to do it or give it to someone else who can support the child. And so there's a lot of support mechanisms involved in there that,
And I know my friend Sue, who some of you will meet next month, did just that. You know, unwed mother who was a teenager and not ready for, parenthood. Her and her husband adopted, subsequently her first two daughters, and been a blessing for. So that's one of the things that this document advocates for is education on adoption and other avenues as opposed to just the abortion.
right, and it also goes into financial support
Sure.
for people who need it, medical support, any kind of, other issues that may
Yeah,
occur.
addressing, I underline that part, address immediate needs as well as long-term needs, including financial, nutritional, medical, educational, social, psychological, as well as spiritual support.
And I think that's where as a
It's
church
for
we
the
have,
long haul.
I think that's probably where as a church body we have probably failed, where it's been a stigma for the whatever circumstance comes around, instead of us coming together to support either the woman in continuing on or finding a way for adoption and not having to lose that life. I think we as a church need to be able to wrap our heads around not being caught up in the fact that, well, this happened. Okay, it's done. Now let's see how do we make it better.
Well, that's one of the things that's tough sometimes if you have an opinion, and even if somebody makes let's say that in the situation, somebody made a really terrible decision on their own that put them in this situation, sometimes it's hard to give grace there because you're like,
Why did you do that?
yeah,
Right.
or
Yeah.
you kind of got what you deserved, where we need to be, give the grace that we're given.
Yeah, and
In a
again, that
situation
goes
like
back to the, calling, not to judge what the
Uh,
circumstances are.
Right, absolutely.
But to, try to prevent, this section is, let's back it up here. Abortion, we're hoping is the last option, though should still be an option. What can we do before we getting there? All of the steps
How do we,
before there, and then walking alongside the people who need to make that decision of giving them all the options and support whichever direction they want to go.
And it feels like no matter what side you're on this, everybody should be behind the prevention and support angle of it.
Well, common
Realistically.
sense dictates that, but some people have different opinions, and those might be
contrary to what that.
contrary to what, but our opinion in the ELCA is
Right.
prevention and education, and that's a little further down on 4. Use of contraceptives is the responsibility of the man and the woman, and then it goes into education responsibilities at the top of page 5, if we're moving on.
Right,
to
and they
page
do
5.
Yeah.
they do say that the proper place for that is marriage. The church still
Yes.
states that,
Marriage is the appropriate context
Marriage.
for sexual intercourse.
but they do
Not
understand that
marriage.
they understand that it does happen outside of it
Right, but,
on occasion.
Right.
So.
but I think too, on page 4, 2 really important sentences right there, where it says congregations are encouraged to support daycare and nurseries in their facilities, and then also members encouraged to become foster or adoptive parents. And I think for some that's difficult, but I think it's something that we certainly can look at doing.
Well, I will say, knowing a few people who've done the foster care, there's a lot involved with that. I mean,
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
and it's hard on both ends of that, but it's very rewarding talking to the people that I know that have done that.
Yeah, and possibly as a church, I mean, it's not only maybe being that foster parent or adoptive parent, but supporting those
Who
that
do.
are.
Right.
In whatever fashion that is, respite care or,
Give them a night off.
Yeah, give them a day off or, whatever that is. Again, I'm not familiar with the foster system, but we could and should be.
And we're trying to be.
We're trying to be.
we're working on it.
Yep.
So back to the prevention education part, are we still on 4 or
And
on
it,
5?
well, I moved to 5.
Okay, we're on page
and,
5, just to keep you where we're at.
And that was one of the questions that I had that we kind of talked about before, was about the church, the congregations and church schools ought to provide sex education in the context of Christian faith. So I wasn't quite,
I think that's going to
He's
be.
not ready to
I think
teach
that's going to
sex
be
ed, is
spelled
what he's
out.
saying.
Yeah. I think that's going to be spelled out more in a later
it may,
session when we go.
but it also says that, you know, we're to support parents for their own education in the home, you know, which is really what Luther tried to do early on, was, you know, make sure that there was some education, not only from that, but from church, from schooling and whatnot at home.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to, you know, you only see people at church, you know, once a week, or you know, a
Well, I'm
limited
only here,
amount of
yeah.
time.
I'm only here an
He's
hour.
only here on an hour on Sunday, so you know, he's not around. But the family unit is what needs to kind of address that
Right.
and instill that it's the responsibility of young men and women of a certain age, whichever age you determine. You know, I might be different from another family who thinks, you know, they need to be taught certain things at a certain age. You know, everybody's is different, but you can have the consistency of this statement.
Right. Yep.
And I also thought it was interesting, just probably because I'm the woman, that the vocation of parenting is both, it's
Yeah,
both for men and women, not just women.
And I think, like I said earlier, we adapt it to the times we live in, where there are, you know, different family units. So it's
Right.
both partners, I would say.
Right, yes. I'm sure there's a,
Right, and there's cultural things also, you know, because
Yeah,
you get a
we're-
lot of people that
Parents
Start
and
here.
grandparents and
Yeah.
whatever else
Right.
are in that mix.
Right.
Yeah.
I triple starred the next paragraph. What do you guys have for that one? The in keeping with our commitment paragraph?
Oh yeah.
Anything?
I highlighted starting at messages in the media and stuff. I mean, I think, you know, early on, you know, TV is going to be the corruption of our, you know, society, and now we have social media,
I was
and
about
now
to
we.
say, anybody watch TV anymore? Is
I do.
everybody on
I'm not on.
some kind of
I'm
streaming
that,
service?
I'm that dinosaur, but yeah, I mean, I think we have. I marvel at TV at night that it's not like it was when I was a kid, when there were certain taboos that were never, ever, ever even thought about to be on before 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, right.
Right now it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You're like, what the heck is that?
What? What?
What did I just see?
I wasn't allowed to watch Purple Rain back when I was, and now it's like on in the afternoon. Everybody can see it.
Right.
Anyway, but yeah, that's so. Just to back it up as to what he's talking about, the church is challenged in following or not following the things that then perpetrate sexualization of people. You know, not making it, kind of breaking the trend of what is seen in the media and
Just a general low regard for human life.
right.
I you know, you see it now pervasively around the world, where human life is just, yeah, okay.
And I didn't, it specifically mentions materialism and individualism, which I had not really thought about in terms of like what that meant to abortion, but I guess it
I think
really
it's more
does.
selfishness is
Yeah, I
what
was about
they're
to say, when
going
you're
for.
really
Yeah,
just
what's more
concerned about
important, yeah,
yourself,
right.
then you have
Well, I mean,
disregard for others.
Yeah, I'll let that go.
Okay.
We'll skip that side road.
skipping that. But
Yeah.
that was interesting. You know, again, it goes back to we as the church reduce the need to turn to abortion as the answer.
Right, and the next section goes back to what we first talked about, was how we as church members, how we as neighbors, how we as loving people,
On the planet Earth.
yeah, are called to walk beside those who are struggling with these issues. And you know, it's not to put judgment in anybody's mind. It's not to cast judgment on anybody. It's okay, we're in this. Let's walk together and let's figure out the best course forward.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wrote here in my notes on the side, was walk with the person making the decision. We're not there to make any decisions or cast blame or guilt or
Right. I mean, you're there as a support. You're not
Right.
you're not there to.
for the whole person.
Right. Exactly correct.
All right, where are we at now? Moving on to page 6.
Yeah, and we talked about this. The continuing of the pregnancy, and it's because of the Christian presumption to preserve and protect life. This church, in most circumstances, encourages women with unintended pregnancies to continue the pregnancy, and that's again where we are called as those people to walk alongside that person and support them and give them options, as opposed to just, you know, this is my birth control plan and I don't, you know.
Right. And it suggests, you know, supporting the extended family or an adoptive family, and understanding that there's going to be a lot of cultural differences, taking that into account as well.
Right.
And really what
Cultural
it
and
says
social
is
backgrounds.
you should go down all avenues before you decide on what your final solution is.
Right.
Yeah, and I think the crux of the social statement is really that the church is advocating for adoption as opposed to
As a, you know,
as
step
an
before.
alternative.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then section B is ending a pregnancy.
Right.
And there are sound reasons for ending a pregnancy through induced abortion. And there are guidelines for making that conscientious decision.
And I mentioned this to you when we were talking about what we're gonna, and for me, it was kind of a punch in the gut when I experienced miscarriages throughout, you know, Susan and my time, and that the actual term for a miscarriage is an abortion, and that was a real gut punch for me because it wasn't.
That was not the terminology you
No,
were
not
expecting.
at all. No. So I think we have to be cognizant of that, and I think we have to be, you know, trying to think what I want to say. I think we have to be supportive, even if that's what, you know, what happens. We have to know the terminology, and I know that in one of my sermons, a parishioner brought it to my attention about something, and you know, we looked at it, and then we had probably a pretty long discussion on that, because it was in the prayers of the church about protecting life and stuff like that. So.
Right. I liked the phrase, what is determined to be a moral, responsible decision in one situation may not be in another. And that just validated, to me anyway, that you can't make a blanketed statement, which again
Right.
goes back to the beginning. There's no absolutes in this sort of thing. You don't know the circumstances of their life or the situation. So to me, I interpreted that as, you know,
And part
there's
of that
a choice.
Part of that is, you know, whether rape or incest or, you know, even being in an abusive relationship is, you know, how people need to reconcile this. And again, it's all about reaching out for help and getting that help by people who care and love for you.
Right. Right.
And they basically spell out where the church, you don't really want to say allows or,
Understands.
right. And, they basically go through, the physical life of the woman is threatened, rape or incest. What else they got in here? All the normal
Unconsenting
things.
partners, however that works out to be,
Right. Well,
Mhm.
right.
no access to contraceptives, again, in that more abusive or controlling relationship where there's things going on, dehumanizing, I think they called it, dehumanizing conditions.
Yeah.
Um,
And then also, are there they also mention in here lethal fetal abnormalities.
And whether you decide to carry that
To the end.
to the end or
Right.
opt to, and there are circumstances, again, that we,
And I think there are plenty, folks with Down syndrome, with we have 2 students at FEC that are both in wheelchairs, and,
and we're called to not make that decision for the parents,
right.
but help support them either way they decide to go.
Hmm. And then,
And we'll get to some other of the guidelines or boundaries, I would say, like ELC is like, don't use abortion for
this, that, or the other.
contraceptive
Right.
or.
Right, which is exactly
for,
what I said. Yeah, it's not your birth control.
Getting the perfect child,
Right.
that's not what I wanted.
And they
It's
also say
next.
in here, if the fetus can live outside the womb, then that's a no-go.
Yeah, I underline that. When a child can survive outside the womb, it becomes possible for
Right.
other people, not only the mother, to nourish and care for the child. And
But-
I underline the fetus is developed enough to live outside the uterus with the aid of reasonable and necessary technology. So, technology is always advancing. And, a miracle for some is, I don't know how to
Yeah.
is to say
But,
that, but there's a difference, in weeks. It's hard to say, one child will survive at a certain number of weeks and another wouldn't. So, that, again, I think that goes back to discussing that with your care provider as
Well,
well.
I was just going to
There's
say
not a lot of
that's
that talking
And they
there,
do,
but
do talk about that in here,
Yeah.
that medical professional,
medical professional
involved.
people.
for us, when my son was born, we're like, yeah. Sue was like, yeah, we can do that again. And then things progressed, and there were other things, and our doctor eventually told us that we would probably have a lot of difficulty and perhaps not a healthy child if we were to try to conceive again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all a part of education, like you said, getting the information from the medical providers to,
Understand what's going on.
yeah, and
It's a lot.
sometimes be disappointed.
and I think their last paragraph on here kind of wraps it up pretty good. Where our biblical and confessional commitments provide the basis for us to continue deliberating together on the moral issues related to these decisions. We have the responsibility to make the best possible decisions in light of the information available to us and our sense of accountability to God, neighbor, and self. In these decisions, we must ultimately rely on the grace of God.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the next section, section 5, gets into one that may or may not be more divisive. Public policy, all about the law and how much the law should be involved in these choices. And they start off with clarifying that the purpose of a law is to protect life and liberty and the general welfare of society. And I'll leave it at that for me. That's as
Well, I think what it's calling us, what this statement is calling us to do is highlighted in the last paragraph where it says, Christians as citizens and as church, as an institution, should join with others to advocate for and support just laws and to work to change those which are unjust. In our attempts to influence the shaping of public policy, we should not disregard the rights of others, but work faithfully through the public processes by which justice is sought for all. And I think there's not a lot of that going on.
I wrote in the notes, great intentions here, but
Right.
we don't, you know what good intentions lead to.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, I feel like that's very idyllic.
Very,
But
very
I
much so.
Don't know that we're there.
But it's something for us to strive for, which I think is
Right.
what this document
Right,
tries to help us do.
yeah. And look at perspectives of others,
Yeah.
you know, as we do so. Even if they strongly differ from your own. And then it goes back to, you know, it's supporting education to prevent unintended pregnancies, legislation to support life after birth.
Yeah,
You know,
where there's
things that
health
the
care,
government can
where
do,
there,
you know, if it's time off for
Right.
parents or childcare, housing, etc.
that's what government
that's-
is responsible to fund. And
I see again.
It-
It's all very.
but I think there comes a part too where us as church are also equally responsible to try to make that happen.
Yeah. Right. Correct.
Right, and they address that where they say, for some, the question of pregnancy and abortion is not a matter for governmental interference, but a matter of religious liberty and freedom of conscience protected by the First Amendment. And then other people think it's not.
And then other think it's
So
not.
there you go.
It's like.
But then you're back to your discussions back and forth, your polite discussions and
Right.
constructive discussions to come to the best possible resolve.
They don't really have an answer for that either, because their position is, as the church, is that the government has a legitimate role in regulating abortion. But furthermore, any proposed regulation should contribute toward the intended goals without generating problems worse than it was there to address. So nobody's got
make
an
it-
answer, 100% answer on that one.
Yeah.
And it even says members of this church hold different opinions about the role and extent of public law and regulation in relation to abortion. So even inside the church, even after this document or guideline is put together, there's still dissension, which
They're still talking about it regularly.
absolutely.
And I don't know if it's slated for any update again in light of other statements that have been written since then, but they do have kind of some lines
Yeah, on the bottom of that.
on the bottom of this page. I don't know if you wanted to
Yeah,
go
I can-
over
I-
anything else, but you know.
So it says,
Close to that.
because of our conviction that both the life of the woman and life in her womb must be respected by law, the church opposes a total lack of regulation of abortion, legislation that would outlaw abortion in all circumstances, laws that prevent access to information about all options available to women faced with unintended pregnancies, and laws that deny access to safe and affordable services for morally justifiable abortions, mandatory or coerced abortion or sterilization, laws that prevent couples from practicing contraception, and laws that are primarily intended to harass those contemplating or deciding for an abortion. So those are the absolutes that this church opposes.
And then there's a lot of stuff that still needs to be deliberated. They've got a list of things that they couldn't come up with a consensus for, or
Right.
again, and that goes back to, you know, what are, is there public funding of abortion that, and, you know, there's more divisiveness.
Oh, absolutely,
Over
yeah,
that
right.
sort of thing.
Right, and how much say the
Parents have, or,
other person involved in the situation has.
Right.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Again, there are innumerable circumstances and then innumerable problems that.
right. And I think between the three of us, we all have pretty strong opinions as to what we believe should be going on. But
Yeah, and I don't know if they agree. I don't know. We have kind of kept well, I haven't kept mine to myself, but
I have.
he has. He's kept his to himself. I've not, but.
But I think, you know, what the importance of this statement too is that is this church, the ELCA, the Lutheran Church, encourages members to participate in the public debate on abortion in the spirit of respect for those with whom they differ. You know, we're not going to agree on everything. You know, and if we did, then where does that get us? You know, I think we need to be responsive to God and the needs of our neighbor.
And I think sort of the wrap up is we want to try to prevent people being in this situation as much as we possibly can. And then we want to show love and compassion to the people regardless of what happens.
Right. Yeah, the conclude.
I was gonna say, I
Concluding.
like the first sentence of the conclusion.
You like the first sentence. I like the last
You like
two.
the last one. See, that's
Nice.
why we're.
So go
So
ahead
the
and
first
read
one
yours.
said, in conclusion, the church's role in society begins long before and extends far beyond legislative regulation.
Right, and then for
'Cause I'm not a
me,
fan.
for pastoral care, compassionate outreach and life-sustaining assistance are crucial in supporting those who bear children, as well as those who choose not to do so. Through these and other means, the people of God seek to be truly supportive of life. So,
Yeah. So it's a tough one. I really highly encourage everybody to read the full document. It's 12 pages. There's a study guide that goes much longer than
that's
that.
24 pages.
It's twice as long, but you know, it's like 5 sessions or something.
Yeah,
Ask questions. That's really how we see other people's perspectives. Be respectful, ask questions, respectfully present your side, and we can work to ensure some of those preventative things.
and
Have the discussions.
have peace with those whom you may not necessarily agree.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Oh, he must be sneaking in the sermon. We're getting down to the end. I mean, it's 1:15, so I mean, you were getting very close to not sneaking one in there, but good job.
Nice.
Good job.
Last minute overtime goal.
Yeah. Are there any questions out there?
Yeah, it's a pretty heavy topic. So.
It is.
It is, but I think it's one that was important to address. We were actually, Pastor Phil was planning on it going a different direction, but I kind of
And it made sense to do
strong-armed
it.
because it's a
She did.
topic that that's prevalent. It's right now. It's in our face, and I think it's good to know where the church as a whole stands and how to address it with the people in your workplace and your family, you know, that might be looking at you like, oh, you're one of those Christians, and you're the cause of all of this, which I mean is easy to assume, but
I think
that's not where we're at.
part of the battle that we fight right now is, you know, the evangelical Lutheran Church in America. Evangelical for that is a completely different message than what a lot of people see evangelical as, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, your Bible thumping, you know,
As I say, TV
televangelist.
televangelist. I was like, how do I put that word together right? I can't figure it out. Yikes. Whew. All right. Well, I haven't seen any more questions on
nope.
the feed, but we have had 7 people with us here the whole time, so I
Excellent.
appreciate.
And again, for
that.
those 7 people who are with us online, you can come join us in person. We would love to see your smiling visages, and
And this topic will be
I don't know yet.
chatted about again
On Sunday.
I was like, you don't know yet. What do you mean?
No, I thought you were-
We just talked about this at the beginning.
Now, do we know what we're doing next
I
week?
don't.
Oh.
I don't.
Well, do we want to do the one you were going to do?
No, I
originally?
think we'll do the other,
We're just talking code and not know what we're
well,
talking about. We'll get to
gender
we'll get back to
or
you.
sexuality or something like that. I
Human
think.
sexuality.
Yeah, I think we might do that.
All right. Well, there you go.
Why not?
We'll see.
There you go.
Why not? Okay.
Sounds
next
like a
steps.
plan.
Oh, Sheila asked next steps. How do we put something together to share with our community that St. Paul's is here for you? In support of
Oh.
those making decisions. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a good.
I
That's a
don't-
good
I don't-
And
question.
that might be something that another group gets started. Maybe that's a direction some people in the congregation feel like they want to go.
Right.
Or in light of our new mission statement that you can check out our website and chat about.
And that's the thing. That's one of the things that the social statement says was that we provide, services, and that service could be a support group for
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Do we house that here? Can we welcome?
Or do we support someone else who is because we don't,
True.
Right. We need to see what
We-
gifts we have here.
what gifts we
In
have
order
here
to
and
do
how
that.
we can
Yep.
support that. So
Yep.
maybe even just the local benevolence for the next month can
Sheila.
can be can be in support of foster parenting or
Yeah.
family partnership or the other one downtown. I can't remember
Yeah, there's
off
a
the
place.
top of my head.
There's a place downtown that I know that is involved with
It's
this.
right across from Lucky Corner. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Anyway,
That's the place.
That's the place, but I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
Well,
Anyway,
if you do, let me know so I can shoot it out to
yeah,
congregational life.
yeah, definitely.
And that was one of the announcements that we forgot to do is the mission statement. The mission statement group has come up with a couple of ideas that we put out to the congregation. Just look at, make some
We've-
comments, see what you think.
We've
there's
had
a link
6
in your-
responses so far.
There's a
Okay.
link in the Weekly Wednesday and
Yep.
on the homepage of the website, so you
Yep.
can get there either way to let
Yep.
us know what you think. We're
Yep. And
time for
then
refresh.
we'll tweak it and do what we need to, and then send it through the chain and let everybody vote on it. Annual meeting.
Yep.
Yay.
Okay.
All right, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for being with us today.
We'll see you next week,
Absolutely.
the end of September.